It has happened again. Ice Adin has once again completely destroyed the Hall of Trials rankings on the very last day, this time being even later than last time because HS Server can't even participate in this last day fiesta this time. So like I said, Ice Adin will be at the very top, and you can see there's a pretty big jump from the Tori teams to the Ice Adin teams. So +1 to the rotations that don't actually require the unit that the entire fight was designed around. I will say that this team is actually pretty hard to gear. There's a pretty significant gear check for breaking the barrier in the third phase. Of course, you can use your strippers, and I guess kind of Elena, to help you damage the barrier after the Sovereign's mana has been removed, though that is slightly dependent on your CR tunings, because in my third phase, it just goes Nahkwol S2 and then add an S1, S2, and that's the only damage into the barrier. So mine breaks fine, though it is, like I said, a pretty significant damage check. If you can't break the barrier cleanly, you might not have as good results, and it might be a struggle to make top 100, though it would work fine for top 5%, of course. Let us go over the roles, the units that you can use for these roles, and their stats as usual. We do still need 2 or more Fire Hero teams, and since we're not using Tori and we're using Ice Adin instead, we'll need to make up for that Fire Hero slot in the other roles. I've opted to replace Straze for Carrot. Carrot has a flat attack imprint, which is really nice for Ice Adin. And also I don't like using Acades because she's a bit harder to run than Elena, and Elena gives attack percent imprint to Ice Adin anyways. So, for the list of fire heroes with an attack percent imprint or flat attack imprint that can strip, there is Nahkwol and Carrot, of course, which are the 2 that I'm using. And there is also Elagos, Elfelt, Araminta, and Cowrick. So I would say these 6 are the main ones you'd want to try and use if you have them built. And of course, there's going to be strippers that don't have attack percent imprints. Litica does have an attack percent imprint, it just doesn't cover the back slot, so it doesn't really count. And I'm not going to name all of them because there's a ton, but some significant ones is there's Melissa and Veronica, since those get extra turn. And then Zealot Carmine Rose is a 3-star, so she'd be really easy to get if anything. And there's going to be a bunch more. You can just check on Cecilia Bot for fire heroes with the spell. Just make sure it's a contact spell, like an attack skill. It can't be a non-attack skill. For the alternative healers, I mentioned Acades already. Besides Elena, there's also Rowana and Doris that you could use. So now let's go over everyone's stats. Elena, I did largely the same as last time. I forgot what gear she was on, to be honest, so I don't have the exact same stuff, but this is pretty much close enough. It's just really fast with enough bulk to not die and 100% crit chance, so you can get the target weakness stacks in the break phase. EE is the S2 cleanse EE, so she can cleanse the burn off of herself, makes it much easier for her to survive. With Warhorn to boost the attack of Adin a little bit. Next up is Nahkwol. She's still just speed DPS. You can make her faster if you need to. I was just running what I used for my previous run. And I've got Bloodstone for the extra sustain. There's not too much to say about this. It's just speed DPS and adjust the speed as needed. There is also Researcher Carrot, who I actually did make pretty fast. The speed was intentional this time. It wasn't like Straze where I was just too lazy to re-gear him, because her S1 only pushes by 10%, so it's a little bit less than Straze. So I do need a bit more speed, and I had to hit the ad a little bit more as well. Aside from that, though, her bulk doesn't really matter too much, because she's got her little barrier and regen on her S3. And I've got her on Card of Small Miracles, because I wasn't sure if I need the defense or not. But you could also use Super Duper Water Shooter. Same thing, really. And then, lastly, we have Serene Purity Adin. Same thing as Tori, it's just full damage, Destro crit, with Cruel Mischief as the artifact. And of course we're using crit set over torrent set because of the damage stacking thing. I will mention that just like the first time Serene Purity Adin was here, you kind of don't want her full skill tree, because her skill tree has this thing that increases combat readiness of the caster by 10%, which is bad, because we kind of want her to like take as little, or we want to be able to take 10 turns after she breaks the barrier and before her next turn. So this would only give you 90% CR to work with instead of 100%. Not the end of the world if you have this, you'll just have to run your units a little bit faster. And I also don't have this speedrun because this wasn't good last time either, and I would say it's potentially good, potentially bad, depending on your speed tunings, but I'd rather just adjust the gear and not do this instead. This one is also not necessary just because we have the whole isolation thing. You can't increase anyone else's combat readiness, so you don't really need this. So that is it for everyone's stats, and now we can take a look at the run. The start of the fight plays out pretty much the same as usual. You just turn on auto and let it go until the barrier phase starts. Only thing to mention is, like I said in Adin Stats, if you have the CR push EE on her skill tree, there's a slight source of RNG here where Elena's S1 might not dispel the stigma off of Adin, like right there, so you might want to consider using S3 if that is the case. So this is now where we're starting off the barrier phase, and we need to use Carrot S3 plus Nahkwol S3 in order to remove the Sovereign's mana and actually damage the barrier. It's pretty tight for my speeds. My Adin just barely gets to go before Harsetti takes her second turn in the barrier phase. So that could be an issue. There's also issues if you speed up Adin in the second and third phase that could occur, which I'll go over once we actually get to it. I use Nahkwol S2 there for the speed buff to get better tuning going into the break phase. So you can see Nahkwol's right at the top. And now we gotta get our 10 crits in. Slight mistake, S1ing Harsetti with Nahkwol there, because I S2 the ad instead, and I should have done it the other way around. S2 the ad and then S1 the ad and then S2 Harsetti for like 30k more extra damage or something. I S1 the ad to get enough CR so I can push up again and then use S3, S2. Gonna hit the ad with Elena to give the final hit to Carrot. Also detonating the burns for like 20k extra damage. Massive. And there is the big torrent proc for 66 million damage. And now I'm going to do something kind of interesting. I'm going to use Elena S3 to reveal the ad from stealth, because it turns out that opportunity buff, you can actually proc it during the main phase itself. So we're not going to proc it immediately. I'm going to wait for Adin to take her turn, so we can have the opportunity buff on her for the maximum amount of time. And this is because we need Adin to not take more than one turn before we are able to strip Sovereign's mana, otherwise she'll proc her S2 too early. So now, well, Nahkwol's going to go first. Now Adin takes her turn. And S1, and really I could just S1 the ad actually. That's something that I should perhaps look at doing if I decide to rerun this. You could just S1 the ad and instantly proc opportunity there. And now Adin will be slowed by 15%, which isn't a ton, but it does help a little bit with tuning. And now we have Nahkwol plus Carrot both going before Adin, which happens without me proccing opportunity there. However, it does make it so that they're a little bit further ahead in the CR bar going into the break phase, because you can see they're pretty close to the top already, and it makes my break phase a little bit cleaner, especially in phase 3. Now I S1. You can see the barrier didn't break, but our S2 will break it. And now we'll be going through the break phase again as usual. This one's definitely not very well routed. My second break phase is pretty scuffed, and I'm missing out on like a little bit of damage here because of that. And here I use Elena S3 to reveal the ad so we can hit it a little bit more. Since we started a bit further back in the CR bar with our other 3 units, you can see Adin's getting pretty close to the top, and we don't have one extra turn like we did last time. I have to S2 the ad there to get enough CR to push the top. And you can also see I'm still missing one hit. She's only at 78% instead of 91%, but we're just going to end the phase anyways. And again, I'm just going to instantly proc the opportunity on Adin. It's nice that the tuning works out for me there, that we're pretty much able to proc it instantly. So Adin will maintain that slow until she takes a turn.
이건 어떤가? 우스운 장난이구나. 축복이 내리리니 저를 의심하는 건가요? 답을 찾을 때로군요. 상황을 보아하니 제가 이길 가능성이 높습니다.
Alright, S3 into Nahkwol S3 to remove the Sovereign's mana. And then, so you can see here, now that the mana's gone, now we can damage the barrier, and the only damage going into the barrier for me is Nahkwol S2, plus Adin's S1, S2. Depending on how well geared Adin is, that barrier might not break with just those damage sources, so this is where a lot of runs might die, just not having the damage to break the barrier there. But mine breaks it fine, so we're just gonna keep on going.
나에 대해 알고 있겠지. 억울해 말게. 그동안의 성과를 보여드리자. 별이 우리를 인도합니다. 해성의 숙명 속에서 영원히 빛나리라. 참 귀찮은 나를 만났다는 거. 자네의 끝을 우연하지. 잠깐이면 된다네. 이건 어떤가?
This phase going a little bit better than our phase 2, we were able to get all 7 hits in. Hit the end with Elena so we don't end the phase too early. And now we can do our final hit. So that is it for the run. Mine is definitely not optimized. My second and third break phase are really scuffed, though I can't really contest top 3 anyways, so I'm probably not going to bother fixing it. The kind of lame thing is that breaking the barrier in the third phase is actually kind of hard. Mine breaks it okay, but if you have like not as good DPS gear on your Adin, you're going to have to rely on timing it so that you have other units hitting into the barrier as well, which can be kind of hard depending on your tunings. You might have to try to use Nahkwol S3 early on in the phase to reveal the ad and get another opportunity debuff, or I guess technically buff on the Adin to slow her down even more. There might be ways around it, but it's definitely going to be a massive gear check even to finish the third phase with this team. But I'll see you guys next rotation for pretty much the exact same thing.